Hello, and welcome to our Carrier Update series, where you get product updates straight from our carrier and vendor partners. You'll find out things like, what do the new plan designs look like? Or is there a new network option that you need to be aware of? Which plans offer the most savings to your prospects and your clients? And what tools and resources are available to help you in your efforts? In the end, we want to help you win more business and retain your clients throughout the year. Visit our website to watch all of our updates, or follow us on LinkedIn to join the conversation. So buckle up and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back to our Carrier Product Update series with Legacy Brokers. I'm your host, Jason Powers, and today's guest is Tom Stein, the Regional Sales Director from American Trust Administrators, who we finally refer to around here as ATA. If you are not familiar with Legacy Brokers, we are a health insurance general agency that focuses on small group health, and our emphasis is on self-funded group products. We do everything from quoting to installation and submissions, and then ongoing support for our independent health insurance agents. A lot of our agents have seen ATA quotes over the last few years, but they really don't know who ATA is.
Okay. Well, I can take care of that. My name is Tom Stein. Thanks, Jason. I am the Director of Business Development for American Trust Administrators. Today we're going to cover a couple of quick things, but off the bat, who am I and why should you be paying attention? Well, the big thing is I represent ATA, or American Trust Administrators, and we are a small group level-funded TPA. We handle groups from 5 up to about 75. And we've been doing in that space for 30 plus years. We're one of the originals in the space. With that much practice, I think we do it pretty darn well. And there's a couple of things that we do that are a bit different than other carriers. I'm going to highlight those off the bat, and one of them we're going to dig fairly deeply into. But one of the new things is we're now offering, we're starting in Missouri, and then we're expanding in other states. We have Texas as well. Non-ERISA plans, which for the brokers here that are deep inside of this space, they know what that means. For the brokers who are maybe a little bit newer, non-ERISA are groups like municipalities, churches, schools that don't qualify for the traditional ERISA plan. And we're now offering our chassis, our program to those spaces so that we can help them long-term plan for their group medical spend. Another thing that makes us a bit different is we are on our attachment point, and this is maybe over a couple of people's heads, but it's not complicated. You'll be able to catch up pretty quick. On our attachment point, or the claims bucket, which Jason has a bucket presentation, right?
I do. I love my buckets.
Yeah, right. So on the buckets, if you compare an ATA quote, the buckets for the claims are going to be a lot larger, all things considered. And what that allows is actually something that is kind of beautiful at the end of the run-out period. If you go after the first year, there's some really cool advantages and some options that if you play well, then you can really explore with your client and provide deeper value, which that's the name of the game, providing value to the client and helping them see the options that you know about, but they're not aware of. So with that, one of the big advantages is that we always refund 100% of that unused bucket, right? Or claims account or aggregate attachment point, whatever term you're used to using. We always refund 100% of it. Now that also, all things considered, makes us a little lower on our total fixed cost, simply because the aggregate acts as a ballasting point to the cost of the stop loss. I'm not trying to get too complicated, but just realize there's no free lunch, so you're trading everything off. Yeah. But if we keep more money in the claims account for the client, it's better long term.
Yeah, I mean, there's more opportunity for a small group to actually receive a refund. I can't tell you how many times we see agents present level funded plans with the opportunity to receive a refund, only to get claims reports that reflect you really didn't have a shot because your specific deductible was $30,000 and your aggregate was $25,000. I mean, it's one claim wipes out your bucket. With ATA, I know, and this is getting deeper into the weeds, but I know with ATA, when we run proposals, there's generally a provision in the ATA proposal that says you've got to have so many, such a ratio of spec to ag in order to make it work, and that at times can be hugely beneficial to small definitely a differentiator.
Sure. So I guess what we're going to go into is how to direct that 100% refund that we have. But off the bat, I'd like to cover a couple of quick things about us. First off, we're pretty flexible. There's no canned designs with us. You email, one of our inside sales or Patty, and she's going to make it so it's apples to apples, which makes life a lot easier on the broker when you can say, all right, they're at a $6,500 deductible, we can just match that, or $1,000, whatever number you're playing with. And that's a benefit of working with ATA. One of the other benefits, and it's, again, there's no free lunch, so this is kind of a trade-off, is that we medically underwrite. Now, the beauty of it is that we price things accurately. So if you have a moderately healthy group, you're going to be in high cotton. If you have a very unhealthy group, well, I'm not going to be able to help you. So it's kind of it's double-sided to that. But at the same token, if you are the broker, you want that because you can really give deeper value to the people that you need to give value to, which are the clients that qualify. Absolutely. With that, if you want to pre-qualify, and I'm sure you guys are already doing this, I know you guys are, with level funding, if you look at your groups and you say, all right, I've got 30 groups that I need to quote for this month, which ones, how do you want to kind of pre-qualify that so you can make the best use of your time? The big thing on here, and I can go deeper if you need to.
Go right ahead.
Okay. There's a couple of things that are going to make it more advantageous to go level funding. And number one is going to be the average age. So if you look at that, you have the average age on your census. If it's over 50, you're going to have a super healthy group to place it. And that's not just with ATA, that's everybody, right? But the further you get under that, the better off you're going to be. And this isn't a secret. The reason why that works is because of the ACA and the 3-to-1 rate compression. So again, I get kind of weedy, but I don't know.
No, I mean, those are great tips. I think one of the big questions I get when we talk about looking at ATA's proposals is, what kind of group should I be looking for if I'm trying to place ATA on a case, and that it certainly rings true just based on some of the other things that we've looked at with pre-ACA, where the index was, post-ACA, where they moved the index to, and then you factor in that 3-to-1 compression on age banding. And you're absolutely right. The sweet spots in that 30 to 40 range. Industry becomes a factor.
Sure.
ACA doesn't rate for industry. All the level funded plans do. Certainly the male to female ratio, and then obviously the health characteristics.
Those are the big ones. Like, if you can get through those couple of first hurdles, then level funding is probably going to work for you. If you skip on one, it might work for you. If you skip on two, that's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough. For sure.
But with that kind of field underwriting, just a little tidbit for you that hopefully help you out. Let's jump into the refunds.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So with ATA's plan, the big thing is it's going to run like every other level funded carrier in general. Like, claims that come in, they're processed, they're paid. If it's over the aggregate attachment, stop loss is going to simultaneously reimburse. It's just kind of the deal, right? The process there is not as nuanced as it is the plan chassis itself. Now, with that 100% refund and being in the small group space, if you're not familiar with our attachment points, you're probably looking at a proposal and you're saying, all right, there's only 10 grand here. There's not much potential here at all. Why would I be concerned about the refund? Not that 10 grand's still a lot of money. But with us on our plans, on our traditional spec and ag, we've had refunds that are very high percentage chance, and also the dollar amount is quite significant. You're refunding a little over $11,000. That's after the runout period, after the claims that are going back to the plan owner. And that's real money that then they can direct. Now, there's some regulations we have to consider, but that's real money that you're taking back to your client and saying, all right, you've already paid your dues, so to speak, for this last plan year. Now we've got this money because it ran well. And almost 70% of them, at least with us, have been running well. What do you want to do with this?
Right.
it's cash flow free money, right? Because this is not counted for. It's not really anticipated by most small business owners. What do we want to do, right? That's what we're going to discuss today is the best ways for you as a broker to actually look at these, produce cash, or take the cash and then direct it at the kind of the ones that are going to provide the deepest value for the client.
For sure.
And there's, just to tell you a quick story about the size, and it's variable, but we've had refunds of plans, and I know you had mentioned this.
We had it was a restaurant group in the Kansas City metro. 25 employees covered on the plan. A lot of part-timers that didn't qualify. But over the years, they accumulated a surplus in excess of 75,000, which is a tremendous number when you look at the total amount of premiums they're paying. It's a lot of single coverage, not a lot of families in there. But over the years, accumulated a pretty sizable surplus. And the owners going to the agent going, well, what can I do with that money, right? And we know that there's some regulations. The Department of Labor has guidance, deems those funds as a plan asset, so they have to be used for the benefit of the participants, particularly because the employer is not paying 100% of it. There's employee contributions in there. But I mean, at the end of the day, she couldn't just cash out the 75 and do what she wanted. But she did want to remodel one of the stores in town. She wanted new furniture, and instead of just cashing out from the health plan, she was able to offset her future plan costs with that 75,000, increase her cash flow by not having to recontribute to the plan, and was able over the course of that one plan year remodel an entire store, and actually didn't use up all of the surplus in the claims fund. So she still ends up in the next year even better off on her health plan than she was when she started. So, and she had a remodeled store.
Yeah.
So I mean, those are things that you can't. Those are tangible things that that a business owner can hang on to that they can't when you walk in it with a 10% increase.
Yeah. And that, you bring up a great point, right? You said tangible.
Yeah.
Like that's the big thing. We deal in the insurance space. We deal with peace of mind. That's what we're really selling. We're going to be confident that everything's going to be taken care of. We've got it, right? But if you bring in something that's tangible, something that's tactile, something they can say, wow, my entire patio looks fantastic. How did I? Oh, it's because my broker took care of me. That client is going to love that broker and is going to treat that broker with a little bit more respect, taking the next level and then all the subsequent years. Makes renewals a lot easier. It makes, if you think something's better for them, ancillary lines, all those other things are much easier to place when you're putting things back in their pocket, almost like a partner, rather than somebody they got to stroke a check to every month. There's a big shift there.
Oh, absolutely.
So the easiest way to direct is, and stay compliant, is to take the cash and then use it against the current plan year's attachment point, right? So you take those dollars, you take that refund, and then you start paying a portion of the current plan year's cost. Right? That's the simplest way to do it. That's how most carriers kind of, if you get a refund, they're going to kind of pigeonhole into that because you can see a quick advantage to that, right? That's an immediate year realization, and from the business owner standpoint, to get into accrual accounting, like you're able to have a large cash flow difference between the two, and it can be real money. You can remodel restaurants. We've had clients who have cash flow advantage, bought new trucks, and to a plumber, when your health plan starts buying you new trucks, that's pretty incredible, But there's some beautiful things to do with that cash flow play. But that's not the only thing that you can do as a broker, right? And you can get pretty deep. So another interesting way to play with it that has a secondary benefit to you guys. We've already talked about becoming more of a partner relationship than a broker relationship with your clients is, right now, everybody needs to deepen their relationships with their clients. And the big piece of that on why is that there's a lot more competition that's shifting into this space. And if you're not providing excess value, or what I call excess value, then somebody else will, right? So with this, if you can step into the space and give them more options that they're not aware of, and this seems like a silly thing, but if you can give them something that their buddies don't know about, right? Now, business owners tend to have other buddies that are business owners, right? And they'll tell war stories, so to speak. But with that, if you can give them something that they're able to take care of, something that's able to protect their cash flow position, and then also something that they can brag to their buddies about, like you're that guy providing that. That's a little bit of deeper value that you can go into. Now, how do we utilize that to, at the same token, provide deeper value to the plan members? And this is the second option that you have, and that is taking the refund dollars, because they have to be treated for all the members of the group, right? And using those to fund ancillary lines, right? So vision, dental, group life. There's some really cool things that you can do with LASIK as well, because you can treat everybody the same. You have these refund dollars coming out, and we have a broker that is able to take his plan surplus and was able to offer LASIK for all the members in the group, which is something incredible. That was multiple year refund, but still, like, you're able to pay for LASIK with the refund. That's something incredible. And then now the members of the group see you as not the guy who's collecting, $300 out of a paycheck every month. You're the guy that's, hey, this guy took care of me.
Right.
I mean, LASIK. So it's something else that's pretty beautiful. And then there's a way to kind of hybrid the two, right? Which is, taking the cash flow position really is an advantage, in my opinion, to the plan owner. Taking ancillary lines is really an advantage to the plan members. Now, what can we do in between? And that's the HRA, right? You have the advantage to the members because you're effectively buying down your deductible.
Sure.
But you're also not necessarily going to use all of that. So the money stays there to balance the plan year over year. And so HRAs are a great way to run those where you're benefiting both the member and the plan owner, and everybody's happy at the end, right?
And ATA can process the HRA, the underlying plan, the HRA.
That's right.
If it's integrated into the medical plan itself.
Yeah. And we charge 5% paid claims, so it's not real charge a lot. But it's something that you can do to bridge the gap between those two kind of constituent parts, which is the member and the plan. Yeah. And you're providing deeper value to both.
The other, so you bring up the HRA, and I love the concept, love the idea. The other thing that we've seen some of these plan sponsors do is, year over year, particularly in the last 5 years with the ACA, the only way to get any kind of rate relief was to raise the deductible, right? Mm-hmm. So with a level funded plan with ATA, where they're actually able to build a surplus, we've seen plan sponsors circle back to where they were pre-ACA with deductible levels. Instead of funding an HRA,
sure,
actually just using the positive surplus position to say, hey, we can go back to $1,000 deductible because we've got all this excess surplus here, that if we do end up paying more claims, we're just going to use those claims dollars that are available in that surplus. And it's just kind of, it's like rewinding the clock back to before all the incredible rate hikes we've seen, sure, in the fully insured world. So I can rattle off a handful of cases that I know right now in 2020, last year in 2020, that actually did peel back to a lower deductible and saved money in their renewal. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. So as we talk through the surplus positions and some of the creative things that we can do with groups, and there's also the bad side, right? You got groups that have diagnoses that happen prior to the renewal and that have an impact on renewal. Can you kind of speak to some strategies there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big thing and we touched on this a little earlier, is that level funded plans are medically underwritten. Now, when you get past the initial year, you're going to start looking at the claims or the consumption of care that they've had throughout the current plan year. And that's going to give them, or the underwriters, a window to look forward. Now, let's say that, that view has changed and it's no longer a bucolic pasture. It's now, there's a problem out there, right? I can't take that metaphor any further. So with that, you have a large claim that's going to be coming up, and you know that that's coming. and let's say it's a $50,000, let's say it's a $100,000 large claim. Well, there's a couple things that a level funded chassis can do. They can say that, they can say, all right, we know this is coming up. We can take this $100,000 and distribute it over the plan members. And that's going to raise the rates for everybody, right? That doesn't sound like that great of an idea. Right? Number two, we can put a thing called a laser onto that condition. And then they can say, all right, this is excluded from the stop loss up to this point or up to this dollar amount, right? Now, at that point, you're asking as the broker, well, this person's not going to have coverage for it. So it becomes a question of two parts. One, is the plan member, do they actually think they're going to do it? A lot of these lasers end up coming out on the oldest individuals in the group. And those oldest individuals tend to be the owners, right? So you have the older individual who says, nah, that's been bothering me for years. I'm not going to do anything about it, right? It's just what it is. And at that point, you just, okay, the guy, he'll accept the laser. The second option is more interesting and a little bit longer term. And that is, if you hold, like Jason's example, you were talking about your restaurant group at $75,000, that group can now use those to effectively offset the cost of the laser. So if you think about it as an HSA for your business, you can now use prior year refunds to then ballast your increases or your rate changes in the future. So again, refunds equal retention. Like that's plain and simple. The more refunds you have, the more retention you have, because it gives you more options as the broker to take care of your client long term, right? So to lasers, if you have been keeping a little bit of your powder dry, so to speak, they don't sting nearly as much, and then you can also continue to hold those rates at a much more ballasted number month over month, year over year.
Yeah. I mean, and the key there, and I can't stress it enough, is that you've got to be able to start building a surplus in the plan to offset future risk. There's really cool things you can do: the remodeling the store, the buying a new truck. We've got some examples of cases where they decided to lower their monthly cost by whatever their surplus was divided by 12. So for math, if they had 12,000 in surplus, they were just going to short pay their bill every month by $1,000 a month and use the surplus to offset whatever their shortage was. But the key for groups that want to stay long term in a self-funded strategy is to build that surplus, because you may have the rainy day year where someone's got some critical medical stuff going on. And in order to really stabilize the plan over time, you've got to be able to accept that risk and keep your rates down. So it's a great strategy. We've used it for. I cut my teeth at ATA.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I think I currently sit in his old chair. So
it's been a long time since I've been in that chair, but we often talk about Dave and your dad, and those guys they were my mentors. Really taught me everything I knew about self-funded. So ATA holds a special place for me. I think we pretty much covered everything on the distributions of refunds.
Sure.
I know
you mentioned something about trying to ballast the rates and then rolling the plan deductibles to try to keep everything the same.
Yeah.
And this isn't. I don't think this is too far new. And I know you've been working with it for a little bit. The RBP space.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's for those of you who are not super familiar. RBP is reference-based pricing. Some people call it RBR, reference-based repricing, or my favorite name is multiple of Medicare, which is mom, right? Which who doesn't like mom? So the big deal on RBP is it's really the other way that people have been using to ballast those rate increases over the last couple of years. Now it's gone from kind of a fringe play to something that's more of a mainstream. The more savvy brokers are familiar with it or becoming familiar with it.
Sure.
Now we offer RBP at ATA. The thing that you have to consider with RBP is, from a sales standpoint, you're going to get, if you're going to offer it, you're going to get at least a 10-point rate reduction. If it's not that, then it's probably not a great fit. But you have to set the table. You're not getting that rate reduction for free. You have to go and do a little bit more work up front with your buddy, your client, and really inform them of some of the hiccups that are going to come with RVP. And the first big hiccup is going to be, well, actually, it's just the primary one, is balance bill.
Yeah.
Right. Now, what we've been seeing, and I don't think this is much different for the industry. It's about, if you have 12 members, you're going to get one balance bill per 12. And that's kind of how it's going to shake out. So if you have a 30 life group, you're looking at 2.5 balance bills for the plan year. Now, that's just kind of what it is.
Yeah.
So if you take that and say, all right, I've got a 15% rate reduction, or I always flip stuff into something that's tactile. You've got a $25,000 rate reduction because that's the difference, and you're going to go in and talk to your the plan owner or your client and say, all right, I got 25 grand here. I've got 5 jet skis. We're going to put back in your pocket, right? But realize for those 5 jet skis, you're going to have 2.5 hard conversation, right? If you frame it in that way and make sure that they understand it, then it's a lot easier multi-plan year. Because if you don't frame it and that phone call comes in, then
on cue,
right? Perfect timing. That's special effects. But yeah, if that phone call comes in, then if you can refer back to that conversation, something tactile, something he remembers, then he'll be a lot more confident and comfortable with the plan. But if he feels like he's lambasted, then you're going to have to do a lot more work than just a 1-year client.
Yeah. So someone else in the industry explained to me that it's going to cause noise, right? I mean, the PPO contract. I mean, really, the difference for those that aren't familiar with RVP is it's not, we're not using a PPO, so the claims are not priced at pre-negotiated amounts. We're negotiating on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
And by we, we're talking about ATA, and you've got a vendor, 6 Degrees, that you work with to help with that negotiation. But all those negotiations are happening after the claim's been incurred. With a PPO, the pricing is set well before the claim ever occurs, and what you get with that is a much higher reimbursement rate to the provider, which costs the plan significantly more than being able to negotiate on the fly. The offset challenge to that is you may have a provider that just is reluctant to negotiate because there was no pre-contracted rate. They're going to stick to their guns. They want X number of dollars, and at that point, that's when 6 Degrees steps in.
That's right.
and helps get that claim processed. Right?
Sure.
But there's so few occurrences in the RVP world that we were not. ATA wasn't one of the first ones on the train. Legacy, we weren't one of the first ones on the train. I think 6 years ago we had AMPS and ELAP come in and talk to us about RVP, and we elected not to jump in the mix at that point. We wanted real data, and I think over the years we've seen some of the larger cases that have gone down that road and really set the stage for the smaller companies to kind of piggyback off of their successes. But yeah, I mean, I think it's less than 2% of all claims for balance billed, and then of that 2%, you're probably talking an even smaller fraction that actually go all the way to full bill. Most of them end up settling out somewhere between what you're originally starting at and what full bill would be.
Exactly right. So. And RVP has gained a lot of ground lately, right? And to the point where there are state medical plans that are priced on RVP.
Yeah.
Like entire states. And so, I mean, Montana's the one that's coming to mind right now. I know North Carolina had played around with it. It's a different way of coming to an agreement of what is a fair value. And not to get too deep into RVP, but it can be beautiful. It can really be beautiful. But one other caveat: set the table with your broker and make sure that you're in their client is in a city with at least 2 hospital systems.
Yeah, that was something early on we were looking at. if it's a one hospital town, you may fool them once, right? But you won't fool them twice. And by that I mean, the hospital accepts the plan, goes ahead and settles out thinking it's a one-time deal, and they find out that every client, every group in town's got RBP. Makes it a little more difficult. But I think there's the other challenge there for TPAs, and I would imagine this is something maybe that you guys, might be looking at is, in those one hospital towns, going and striking a deal with that hospital to have a negotiated RBP price set on the front end. And you don't have to do that as a PPO. You could go in and do that as a plan, right? As a plan administrator or plan sponsor. So I think those are the exciting things that we'll see small groups have a little more, a little more bargaining power.
That's more of a this could get to a deep conversation.
Yeah, it could.
But yeah, that's like pre-negotiating contracts on an RBP chassis is it's the future. Like in my mind, it's the future. You have to get a little bit of critical mass so you can get the CFO to sit down. But if you have, call it 500 lives in a one hospital town, you are not representing 15 clients. You're representing a significant percentage of that hospital's revenue. And this is a nickel here that I picked up at a conference, and it shocked me. And I was talking with a guy who runs a hospital out of Idaho, and he said, we were talking about unreimbursed care, super exciting stuff. And he said, I said, what's your worst collectible debt, right? And I didn't, just kind of playing with him. And he said, the worst debt that we have, the most uncollectible thing that we have is high deductibles.
Yeah.
16 cents on the dollar is what we've been averaging. So if you have a $7,000 deductible, they're getting $1,000, a little over $1,000 out of that, right? So what he did, and this was I thought this was pretty sharp, is they put together a plan. And takes a long time to set up. You need disclosure from all parts, right? And they put together a plan with $1,000 deductible that the hospital knew they were going to get paid. But just by reducing that spread, they were able to reduce the overall cost or the overall charge master because of that. Like, that's super simple. And the charge master goes down, which means the rates go down, which means it actually doesn't hurt the client or the member. So it's it's transparency. And historically, hospitals and stop loss companies and TPAs have not
all been on the same page.
Exactly. But it's something that's beautiful. And if you can get that consensus together, then you can build health plans in small towns that protect those small hospitals that are gorgeous from rate standpoint and gorgeous from a loss position. Like, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Well, it sounds like a great challenge for the agents out there that are looking at ATA proposals, looking at RBP, and putting together plans is really to be the innovators of that. Really go to the hospitals, go to the towns, and talk with those providers to bridge the gap. Because otherwise, it's an us versus them kind of scenario, and nobody wins.
Yeah, so, if it's win-lose, then who's the little guy that probably lose? Yeah. So you got to set it up in a different way.
Yeah. Tom, I could sit here. We could sit here and talk all day. We could talk about whiskey, beer, all kinds of things. But I appreciate your time today. I appreciate the presentation for our agents out there. As always, be sure to reach out to our team here at Legacy to get yourself an ATA quote for your client. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to reach out. We'll put the puzzle together. And with that, I bid you adieu. Have a great 2021.
Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode of our Carrier Update series. Be sure to check out all of our Carrier Updates on our website at www.legacybrokerskc.com. Also, follow us on LinkedIn to join the conversation and let us help you with your group health cases. Whether you need help with a tough renewal or a new prospect, we shop the entire market to get the most competitive rates for your clients. Let our expertise in self-funded health plans be your competitive advantage. We provide an entire suite of back-office support services for agents, from quoting to case install and renewal support. We have your back every step of the way. Always here to help agents just like you when you need it. Send us an RFP today and see for yourself.